Hello! I've just read chapter 11 of The Last of the Jedi, The Desperate Mission. So we get Obi-Wan rushing, let's just get straight into it. So we have Obi-Wan rushing into Amy Anton's room, or Amy Anton, to tell her what toxins were used, what combination was used. And within pretty much a few minutes she gets thrown up, but that's getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. We have a bit of a Roan and Obi-Wan leave Amy to her thoughts Roan out, and they have a bit of a moment, the two of them, where I'm trying to remember what goes on, but Will just feels like the Empire is just tough, it just can't be overcome. It seems like they're impossible to overcome, and that but he does still wish that one day he wants to be there to see the Empire get overcome, which to me indicates he may die at some point in the series of the books. So but you got Obi-Wan there agreeing and saying that he doesn't believe that the Empire will always rule. But eventually Rome wakes up, Amy comes to get Will and Obi-Wan, and they talk with Rome initially, and he's a little bit resistant. He says he's not going to tell them. He's not going to tell them where Ferus is. But eventually, Obi-Wan says, "Just give me another moment with him." And Will and Amy leave him with Roan. Roan recognises him based on the description Ferus had once gave him of Obi-Wan, and he's not sure whether he can trust Obi-Wan, but he eventually does tell Obi-Wan where Ferus is. And once Obi-Wan says, would Ferus keep his oath to you to not come back for you if he... Because again, remember, I think it was chapter 8, it's established that Ferus and Roan took an oath to not come back for each other if they escaped. And you got Obi-Wan there saying, you know, Ferus, would he keep that oath? Would he still thinks you're in prison. Do you really want him to come back only to get captured, thinking that you might be on the brink of death and in the Empire's custody? And that's what eventually gets Roan to break, and he tells him that he's in the mountains over in Arno, which I assume is where the village is from that chapter. And so then we have a little bit of a time jump with Obi-Wan, with Rilla giving Obi-Wan some new ID docs, and he makes his way off to the spaceport, and he's under the identity of a businessman from Raid 7. Anyway, he gets to the spaceport, and we see that there are, surprisingly, on this journey there, most of the Bellarsons were hiding in their homes, with lights being very dim as if they didn't want their presence to be seen. And then surprisingly, when he gets to the spaceport, it's surprisingly very busy. And you have an Imperial officer say they're not going to accept Bellarsons to leave the planet, they will only take Outlanders. And so the Bellarsons go home, Imperial spies go to follow them home, get their names, etc., so they can be put on a list as potential threats to the Empire. Obi-Wan makes his way through the checkpoint. He gets into his ship, he takes off, and he notices he's being followed by a fire spray gunship, which, if you know what class of that ship that is, that's the same one as Boba Fett and Jango Fett's ship, the Slave One. So, and I know Boba Fett appears in this book. I did have a sneak peek to the last page of the book, and literally the last line is Boba Fett had found them. So, and also there was an image in one of the like essential guides that had Boba Fett chasing Ferus, Olin and Obi-Wan in the pipelines below. Because we also learn that from Rilla that she had to call in a lot of favours to get that ship for Obi-Wan, and that she is, and that he's of course being disguised as a businessman from Raid 7, and that's under the disguise of going to Raid 7, when in actuality it's going to orbit around Bellasa to get to Arno. But where was I? Oh, yeah, we do learn that there are pipelines. There's a pipeline network being made around USA, and that if they were suspicious of him, they wouldn't have allowed him to leave the planet. So, yeah. They would have detained him at the spaceport, that's what it said, so yeah. Again, I enjoy this chapter, and again, Roan's character was a bit at first, but the more you think about it, the more his character makes sense. He is loyal to Ferus. You know, you can see he is loyal. But he's all. But I think you can kind of see that loyalty and that love is a little bit blinded by what he wants to believe rather than the truth. Because he knows that Ferus would come back for him, but he wants to believe that he wouldn't. He wants Ferus to be out there and prosper without him, because that's what they took with their oath. And you can see he's in a little bit of denial, but it's not out of bad nature. It's just through his love and loyalty to Ferus. And I do hope we get to see a lot more of Rome before, of course, he eventually dies, which I know what ends up happening. Apparently he dies to Vader or something. So, again, as a sneak peek on his Wikipedia page, and I spoiled myself, so, but, yeah, I'm looking forward I do want to see a bit more of Roan, especially Roan with Ferus Olin. I would like to see a bit more of that relationship. I think, based on what we were told in Chapter 8 between them, they were very sweet, and so I do hope we get to see a bit more of them. And I'm also going to be interested to see what the interaction between Ferus and Obi-Wan is. I'm going to be interested to see whether he's surprised to see Obi-Wan, whether he's relieved to see Obi-Wan. I'm going to be curious to see what that reaction is, or whether he would have a chance to have a reaction because of having to move so quickly. But yeah. Oh, and they did also mention to not bring Ferus back to USA, and that's the 11 would try and find a way to smuggle Roan out to him. I forgot about that, but yeah, that's something that the 11 said. Also, I forgot to mention with the last review, Obi-Wan has apparently shaved his beard, which is going to be something to try and remember when picturing the scenes. So yeah, there was something a little bit earlier. Where we kind of learn a little bit about Ferus, and Obi-Wan says, "I can't give you facts, but you must make this decision based on nothing but your feelings." And Roan replies, "Now you sound like Ferus." So we do learn a little bit about how about, I guess, Ferus's persistency. And, so, yeah. But yeah, I enjoy this chapter. Again, I've enjoyed all the chapters. I've enjoyed them all. But, again, I enjoy this chapter. So, yeah. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye. Hello, I've just read chapter 12. Yeah, that's right, 12. Of the Desperate Mission from which is the first book in the Last of the Jedi series. I was meant to say Last of the Jedi, the Desperate Mission, but got mixed up there. So, Boba Fett has opened fire on Obi-Wan. To be honest, let's be honest, we know it's Boba Fett. Literally in the last chapter it told us it was a fire spray ship, which Boba Fett and Jango Fett owned. And then it says that Obi-Wan felt a familiar presence. It's Boba Fett, come on. And also we know Boba Fett, I know Boba Fett appears later in the book, so I literally looked at the last page. So, and now Boba Fett's in here, so come on, it's Boba Fett. So I'm just gonna say Boba Fett, even though it doesn't refer to who it is, or what even gender the character is, but we know it's Boba Fett, so come on. Obi-Wan gets into a bit of a pickle. He's meant to jump into hyperspace while Boba Fett's following him, but he doesn't, because again he's intending to do a slow orbit around the planet to get to Ferus. And what winds up happening is that Boba Fett opens fire. He notices Boba Fett starts speeding up, so he speeds up. And then Boba Fett fires a proton torpedo onto him, and then he starts opening fire on Kenobi. So presumably he's been either hired to try and track Ferus Olin, or any others that may be, or anyone who may be of relation to him, and or people trying to track Ferus, and is trying to, of course. Actually, that wouldn't make sense though, would it? Maybe he's just trying to stop a Belarson or something. I don't know what Boba Fett's doing there for. We don't know yet. There's not enough information. But he opens fire on Kenobi, probably because it's suspicious that he's meant to jump into hyperspace and he hasn't. So, again, don't know why Boba Fett's there, but yet. I assume it will either be explained later in the book or at some point in the next book. But he opens fire, and Obi-Wan ends up flying over toward Ferus for some reason, towards the coordinates Throne gave him for Ferus. And he dives into a valley, and he winds up flying into a deep bit of snow, and he winds up having an avalanche fall on him. He uses the Force to make sure Boba Fett's gone, and once Boba Fett is, he knows he can't fly his ship out of the avalanche, so Obi-Wan then gets out through his lightsaber and uses his grappling hook thing, his grapnel line, as it says in the book, or something like that. No, it's grapnel something, to catch it on the rock and pull him out of the drift that's buried him, and he gets out, and then starts the journey off to Ferus's cabin, and once he gets there, Dona is pointing a blaster rifle at him, and Ferus comes out and warns Obi-Wan. Not warns Obi-Wan, warns Donna to not shoot, and Obi-Wan's his friend. And that's how the chapter ends. Again, not a lot that goes on in the chapter that we have to really keep talking about. Again, I think the main thing when it comes to character things to talk about is when Obi-Wan is being chased by Boba Fett, even though it's been months, maybe coming up to a year since the Revenge of the Sith, and he's actually properly flown. He's still remembers everything, as it says in the book, and also how deep of a dive he could take before he felt a feeling that uncomfortable feeling in the stomach. but he also was thinking, if Anakin was here, he'd be piloting this and he'd be enjoying this. And we get a little bit of line in the book where it says, the thought was unbidden, he... paraphrasing now, but it was something along the lines of the thought was unbidden, he just couldn't shake the thoughts of Anakin, he just couldn't stop thinking about Anakin. And let me find the actual line. If Anakin were here, he'd be piloting. This was the kind of challenge he enjoyed. The thoughts had risen unbidden. He could not seem to stop such thoughts. He was still in the habit of thinking of his apprentice, his friend, Anakin, not who he became. He didn't want to remember. It brought too much pain. And, you know, again, we can't know that about Obi-Wan already, but it is still... I think it does kind of goes deep into just how much of a painful thing it is for Obi-Wan, how even the most, what would be seen as simplest things, upset him and remind him of Anakin, like piloting while in danger. And again, it really is a sad thing. But yeah, there's not really a whole lot to talk about with this chapter, so I'm just going to say I enjoyed it, and I think that's probably where I'll leave this review. So yeah, we're probably going to have a catch up between Obi-Wan and Ferus, and honestly, I was expecting Obi-Wan to go in the cabin and then wind up getting attacked by or fall in somewhere because of all the booby traps that were set up by Donor. I forgot to mention them, but yeah, Donor set up a bunch of booby traps inside the cabin, so I was expecting Obi-Wan to get caught in one of them. But no, he didn't, so that's good. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and goodbye.